The Lemnorian Emperor's fist clenched as he watched the secret transmission. Earth was building ships the size of moons, ships that could harness the power of stars. For centuries, the Galactic Empire had dismissed humans as a primitive species, no real threat to their dominion over the stars, but they had underestimated human ingenuity and drive. Now, in the year 2257, humanity's rapid technological ascent risked shattering the delicate balance of galactic power. Emperor Varrock turned to his counselors with a grave expression. If the humans complete these planet ships, they will be unstoppable. We must act swiftly to neutralize this threat. He summoned his top operative, Solaris. The shapeshifter had a cunning mind and mastery of infiltration. Infiltrate Earth's scientific community. Find out everything you can about these ships, their weaknesses, their timetable. Do whatever it takes to prevent their completion. Back on Earth, engineer Derek Hill worked feverishly to bring the first planet ship online. His team grappled with the immense challenges of an engineering project on an unprecedented scale. Antimatter reactors, inertial dampeners, wormhole generators, technology that pushed the boundaries of human knowledge. As the ship neared completion, Derek sensed something was amiss. Breaches in security, suspicious behavior among certain team members. Was there a spy in their midst? No matter. The launch would proceed as planned. The future of humanity hung in the balance. This was their chance to ascend from cosmic underdogs to a true galactic superpower. Derek gazed up at the planet ship looming in Earth orbit, a titan of gleaming alloy and mind-bending propulsion rings. When the galaxy glimpsed this vessel's might, the Galactic Empire would tremble before the dawn of a new human age. In the heart of the Galactic Empire, Emperor Varrock convened an emergency meeting of the ruling council. Representatives from the most powerful alien races filled the grand chamber, their usual bickering and posturing replaced by an uneasy silence. They all knew the reason for this unprecedented gathering, the impending launch of Earth's planet ships. Varrock stood before the council, his voice resonating with authority. The humans have forced our hand. Their planet ships threaten the very foundation of our empire. We must act decisively to counter this threat. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembled dignitaries. Varrock outlined his plan, a combination of diplomatic maneuvering, covert sabotage, and accelerated development of rival technologies. The council members listened intently, their differences momentarily forgotten in the face of this shared challenge. On Earth, the planet ship project entered its final stages. Derek Hill walked through the cavernous construction bay, his eyes fixed on the gleaming hull of the ESS Prometheus. Beside him strode Natalia Ivanova, a brilliant xenobiologist he had personally recruited for the mission. "She's a beauty, isn't she?" Derek said, pride evident in his voice. Natalia nodded, her gaze filled with wonder. "I never imagined I would be part of something like this. To think we'll soon be exploring the farthest reaches of space, seeking out new forms of life." As they walked, Derek and Natalia discussed the challenges ahead, their conversation flowing easily from technical specs to the philosophical implications of their mission. A bond was forming between them, a shared sense of purpose and destiny. Amidst the bustle of the construction bay, a figure moved with calculated precision. Samuel Novak, the alias of the Lemnorian spy Solaris, worked diligently on the ship's systems, his true intentions hidden behind a mask of dedication. With each adjustment, each seemingly innocuous modification, he sowed the seeds of future disaster. The day of the Prometheus unveiling arrived, and the world watched in awe as the colossal ship was revealed. Dignitaries and journalists from across the globe gathered to witness the historic moment. Derek and his team stood proudly on the podium, basking in the adulation of a grateful planet. Far above the Earth, cloaked Lemnorian warships moved into position, ready to strike at the opportune moment. In the depths of the Galactic Empire, Varrock's operatives prepared to board the Prometheus, their mission to seize control of the ship and its revolutionary technology. As the Prometheus began its maiden voyage, the fate of two civilizations hung in the balance. Earth's triumph was tempered by the looming specter of galactic conflict, while the Lemnorian Empire's desperation fueled a dangerous gambit. The chess pieces were in motion, and the game for dominion over the stars had only just begun. As the ESS Prometheus sliced through the inky void of space, an atmosphere of unease settled over the ship like a suffocating blanket. Captain Marcus Blackwell paced the bridge, his weathered face etched with concern. He glanced at his first officer, Commander Akira Tanaka, who sat at the tactical station, his fingers flying over the console as he analyzed the ship's systems. "Status report, Commander," Blackwell barked, his voice cutting through the tense silence. "All systems nominal, Captain," Tanaka replied, his eyes never leaving the screen. "But I'm detecting some anomalous readings in the power core. Nothing critical at the moment, but I recommend we keep a close eye on it." Blackwell nodded, his jaw clenching. He had a gut feeling that something wasn't right, but he couldn't put his finger on it. Deep within the bowels of the ship, Solaris worked diligently, his true identity hidden behind the facade of Samuel Novak. He moved through the engineering section with practiced ease, his eyes darting from one system to another as he sought out vulnerabilities to exploit. With each subtle manipulation, he sowed the seeds of discord and doubt, laying the groundwork for the Galactic Empire's ultimate victory. As the Prometheus ventured deeper into uncharted territory, the crew encountered the Zephyrians, an ethereal race of energy beings. Derek Hill and Natalia Ivanova took the lead in establishing contact, their combined expertise proving invaluable in bridging the gap between the two civilizations. In the Zephyrian capital, a shimmering citadel of light and energy, Derek and Natalia met with the Zephyrian leaders. The aliens were hesitant at first, their luminescent eyes fixated on the towering form of the Prometheus in orbit above their world. "We come in peace," Derek assured them, his voice steady and confident. "We seek only to learn from you and share our own knowledge in return." Natalia stepped forward, her hand outstretched in a gesture of friendship. "Your energy harvesting technology is unlike anything we've ever seen. If you're willing, we would be honored to study it and perhaps find ways to adapt it to our own needs." The Zephyrian leader, a being of pure radiance, considered their words. "And in exchange?" "We offer our advanced medical knowledge," Natalia replied, her eyes shining with sincerity. "We know of the disease that plagues your people. Let us help you find a cure." The Zephyrian leader nodded, a flicker of hope passing across its luminous features. "Very well, we accept your offer." As the Prometheus prepared to depart Zephyrian space, its holds laden with new knowledge and technology, Solaris made his move. With a few deft keystrokes, he sabotaged the ship's energy core, sending a massive power surge rippling through the vessel's systems. Alarms blared throughout the ship as systems shut down one by one. On the bridge, Captain Blackwell gripped the arms of his chair, his knuckles turning white. "Report!" "We've lost main power," Tanaka shouted over the cacophony of warnings. "Navigation, communications, life support, everything's offline." In engineering, Derek Hill raced from console to console, his legs shaking as he tried to make sense of the cascading failures. "This isn't random," he muttered under his breath. "Someone did this deliberately." But there was no time to dwell on that now. The Prometheus drifted helplessly, its crew scrambling to restore power and regain control. Light years away, Admiral Zarn of the Lemnorian fleet smiled coldly as he watched the crippled human ship on his view screen. "Move in," he ordered, his voice dripping with anticipation. "Prepare boarding parties. We'll take that ship and its secrets for the glory of the Empire." On the Prometheus, Captain Blackwell and his crew fought desperately to bring their ship back to life, unaware of the looming threat that approached with each passing second. The battle for the stars had reached a pivotal moment, and the fate of two civilizations hung in the balance. The Prometheus shuddered as another volley of Lemnorian fire struck its hull. Captain Blackwell gripped his command chair, squeezing hard. "Status report. Shields at 12%, weapons offline, hull breaches on decks 3 through 7, Commander Tanaka shouted over the din of alarms. A crackling transmission filled the bridge. Admiral Zarn's cold voice echoed through the speakers. "Captain Blackwell, your situation is hopeless. Surrender your vessel and technology immediately." Blackwell's eyebrows furrowed. "We'll never surrender to you, Zarn." "So be it," the transmission cut off abruptly. Precision strikes hammered the Prometheus, each impact strategically placed to cripple but not destroy. Sparks erupted from consoles as systems failed in cascading sequence. In engineering, Derek Hill fought to reroute power, his hands flying over controls. A movement caught his eye, Samuel Novak slipping away amid the chaos. Derek's eyes narrowed. Something about Novak's calm demeanor amid the destruction felt wrong. "Natalia," he called to Dr. Ivanova, "follow me." They raced after Novak, tracking him to the auxiliary shuttle bay. As they burst in, they saw him prepping a shuttle for launch. "Samuel, what are you doing?" Derek demanded. Novak's face twisted into a snarl. In a fluid motion, he lunged at Derek. The two men grappled fiercely, crashing into control panels. Natalia joined the fray, landing a solid kick to Novak's midsection. The fight spilled into the shuttle. Derek pinned Novak against the bulkhead, but gasped as his opponent's features began to shift and flow. The human facade melted away, revealing the true visage of Solaris, the Lemnorian infiltrator. "You're too late," Solaris hissed. "Your precious ship is doomed." A well-placed strike from Natalia knocked the shapeshifter unconscious. Derek and Natalia exchanged a grim look as they secured their prisoner. On the bridge, Blackwell watched helplessly as Lemnorian boarding craft approached. Suddenly, new contacts appeared on sensors. A familiar voice crackled over the comm. "This is Admiral Ivanova. Hang on, Prometheus. The cavalry has arrived." A fierce battle erupted as human reinforcements engaged the Lemnorian fleet. Caught off guard, Zarn's forces found themselves outmatched. Within minutes, they began a hasty retreat. The bridge crew's cheers died in their throats as massive new contacts appeared. A vast armada of sleek, predatory ships dropped out of hyperspace, dwarfing both human and Lemnorian forces. "Unknown vessels, this is Captain Marcus Blackwell of the ESS Prometheus. State your intentions." A deep, resonant voice responded. "I am Supreme Commander Tark of the Kravar Empire. This region falls under our jurisdiction. You will surrender your vessel immediately or face annihilation." Blackwell's blood ran cold as he assessed their options. With systems crippled and caught between two hostile forces, they had no choice. We surrender," he said, the words tasting like ash in his mouth. Within minutes, Kravar troops swarmed the Prometheus. The crew was rounded up and herded to holding areas. Engineers in strange biomechanical suits began swarming over the ship's systems, probing its secrets. Derek and Natalia were dragged from the shuttle bay. Solaris's unconscious form hauled alongside them. They were marched to the bridge, where Blackwell and the senior staff stood under heavy guard. A towering figure strode onto the bridge. Supreme Commander Tark. His jet-black carapace gleamed in the harsh light, compound eyes taking in every detail of the human vessel. "Fascinating," Tark's mandibles clicked as he spoke. "You will tell us everything about this ship's capabilities. Its power source, its FTL drive, everything." "And if we refuse?" Blackwell asked defiantly. Tark's alien features twisted into what might have been a smile. "Then we will extract the information by other means. The choice is yours, humans. But make no mistake, the secrets of your planet ships will be ours, and with them, the Kravar Empire will reign supreme over the galaxy." The Kravar flagship's interrogation chamber reeked of ozone and fear. Derek Hill's muscles screamed as he hung suspended in a crackling energy field, his body racked with spasms. Across the room, Captain Blackwell slumped in a similar containment field, blood trickling from his nose. Supreme Commander Tark loomed over them, mandibles clicking in frustration. "Your resilience is impressive for such fragile beings, but ultimately futile." Derek spat a glob of blood onto the polished floor. "Go to hell, bug!" Tark's compound eyes flashed. He gestured to a nearby technician, who manipulated controls on a glowing panel. Derek's screams echoed through the chamber as the energy field intensified. "Enough," Blackwell croaked. "Leave him alone, you monster." Tark turned, regarding the captain with cold curiosity. "Then perhaps you'd like to enlighten us about your ship's fascinating power source?" Blackwell's face hardened, but he remained silent. "Very well. Tark's mandibles twitched in what might have been a cruel smile. If you won't divulge your secrets willingly, we'll extract them directly from your vessel. He tapped a communicator on his carapace. Begin dismantling the human ship. I want every component cataloged and analyzed. As Tark swept from the room, Derek and Blackwell exchanged grim looks. Their suffering had only just begun. Light years away, Admiral Ivanova's fingers flew across a holographic display, coordinating movements of ships from a dozen human colonies. Her eyes were sunken with exhaustion, but burned with fierce tenacity. "Status report on the Zeta-9 uprising?" she barked. A young lieutenant snapped to attention. "Kravar forces diverted to quell the rebellion, ma'am. Their orbital defenses are weakened." Ivanova nodded. "Good. Tell our stealth teams to move in. I want those weapon platforms sabotaged before we launch our main assault." She turned to a bank of encrypted communication arrays, transmitting coded messages to resistance cells throughout Kravar space. Each broadcast was a plea, a call to arms against their oppressors. One such message reached the desolate world of Draka Prime, where Breshna hunched over a cobbled-together receiver. The Kravar engineer's chitinous brow furrowed as she decrypted the transmission. "It's time," she chittered to the motley crew gathered around her. Aliens of a dozen species, all outcasts and rebels, looked to her with a mix of hope and trepidation. A scarred Lemnorian female, Zyla, stepped forward. "You're sure we can trust these humans?" Breshna's mandibles clicked decisively. "They're our best chance at toppling the regime. Gather everyone. We move at nightfall." "Ah!" Alarms blared through the corridors of the Prometheus as Kravar's salvage teams swarmed its decks. In the chaos, a lithe figure slipped from shadow to shadow. Natalia Ivanova's heart pounded as she dragged the semi-conscious form of Solaris behind her. They reached a maintenance hatch, and Natalia quickly bypassed the security lockout. As the hatch slid open, revealing a docking umbilical, Solaris stirred. "What? Where?" he mumbled, his features shifting subtly between human and Lemnorian. "Escaping," Natalia hissed. "Now move!" They sprinted down the umbilical, alarms echoing behind them. At its end, a small Kravar shuttle waited. Natalia's fingers danced over unfamiliar controls, coaxing the alien craft to life. As they pulled away from the Prometheus, Natalia caught a glimpse of the magnificent ship through the view screen. Her throat tightened as she saw Kravar cutting beams slicing into its hull, harvesting its secrets piece by piece. The shuttle bucked and shuddered as they entered the atmosphere of a nearby world. Natalia fought the controls, guiding them towards a sprawling industrial complex etched into the planet's barren surface. "Curran's Rock," Solaris croaked, recognition flickering in his eyes. "Kravar mining colony." Their descent became a barely controlled plummet. Natalia gritted her teeth as the ground rushed up to meet them. With a bone-jarring impact, the shuttle skidded to a stop amid twisted metal and billowing dust. As the hatch hissed open, they found themselves surrounded by a ring of armed figures, a patchwork of species, all leveling weapons at the new arrivals. A Kravar female stepped forward, her carapace scarred and pitted. "I am Breshna," she clicked. "State your purpose here, outsiders." Natalia raised her hand slowly. "We seek allies against the Kravar Empire." Breshna's compound eyes narrowed, focusing on Solaris. "And what of this one? He reeks of deception." Solaris struggled to his feet, his form solidifying into his true Lemnorian appearance. "I have information," he said weakly. "Kravar secrets, stolen during my mission to Earth." A tense silence fell over the gathering. Breshna's mandibles worked as she considered their fate. "Very well," she finally chittered. "You will share what you know, but betray us, and your deaths will be slow." As they were led into the rebel base, Natalia's mind raced. They had escaped immediate danger, but found themselves in the midst of an even greater conflict. She could only hope that somewhere out there, help was on its way. Natalia's eyes widened as the cacophony of alarms suddenly intensified. Through the grimy viewport of the rebel base, she saw the sky light up with streaks of weapons fire. The human resistance had arrived. "We need to move," Breshna clicked urgently, mandibles twitching. If your allies are here, Tark will be distracted. This may be our only chance to free our people. Natalia nodded grimly. What about the Prometheus? Solaris, still weak but alert, spoke up. We can't let the Kravar keep it. The technology will be destroyed, a familiar voice cut in. Derek Hill limped into view, supported by Captain Blackwell. Both men looked haggard, but their eyes burned with commitment. Blackwell's voice was hoarse. We're going back. We'll overload the core and blow her sky high before Tark can steal her secrets. The plan came together quickly. While Breshna's rebels staged a multi-pronged assault to liberate their imprisoned comrades, a small team would infiltrate the Prometheus and initiate its self-destruct sequence. The journey back to the captured ship was a blur of laser fire and explosions. Derek's heart pounded as he and Blackwell fought their way through twisting corridors, dispatching Kravar soldiers with grim efficiency. They reached the power core, fingers flying over familiar controls. Warning klaxons blared as the overload sequence engaged. Derek allowed himself a moment of bitter satisfaction, but it was short-lived. Intruders! The harsh screech of Kravar voices filled the chamber. A storm of energy bolts peppered their position. Go! Blackwell shouted, pushing Derek towards cover. Finish the sequence! Time seemed to slow as Derek worked feverishly, the captain's covering fire a steady rhythm in his ears. Then a pained gasp cut through the din. Derek turned to see Blackwell slumped against a console, a smoking hole in his chest. The captain's eyes were glassy, but he managed to croak out final orders. Tanaka, acting captain, get everyone out. A primal scream tore from Derek's throat as he emptied his weapon into the advancing Kravar. The core pulsed ominously, countdown racing towards zero. Suddenly, new voices joined the fray. Breshna's rebels swarmed the chamber, laying down suppressing fire. Move! A scarred Lemnorian female barked. This ship's about to become a very expensive firework. They half-dragged Derek from Blackwell's body, racing through corridors rapidly filling with panicked crew members and liberated prisoners. Stolen Kravar shuttles waited in the docking bays, engines already spooling up. As they cleared the Prometheus's hull, Derek caught a glimpse of Admiral Ivanova's fleet engaging the Kravar armada. The Titanic vessels traded savage blows, space itself seeming to warp under the onslaught. A blinding flash erupted behind them. The Prometheus, humanity's crowning achievement, disappeared in a cataclysmic fireball. Derek's eyes stung, and not just from the glare. Their ragtag flotilla limped away from the battle, regrouping at preset coordinates. As the adrenaline faded, the magnitude of their losses began to sink in. A crackling transmission cut through the somber silence. This is Commander, Acting Captain Tanaka. All surviving Prometheus crew, report status. Derek's hands shook as he keyed the comm. Hill here, sir. We lost the captain. Tanaka's voice was steady, but Derek could hear the strain beneath it. Understood. We'll mourn our dead later. Right now, we need to find somewhere to regroup and lick our wounds. The comm erupted with chatter as ships reported in. One voice cut through the din, the scarred Lemnorian female who had helped extract them. This is Zyla. My team has a gift for you. Her tone was coldly satisfied. We've captured Supreme Commander Tark. A stunned silence fell over the channel. Derek exchanged shocked glances with Natalia and Solaris. Well done, Tanaka finally responded. Secure the prisoner. We'll decide what to do with him once we're safe. As if on cue, a young ensign's voice rang out. Sir, long-range scans show an uninhabited planet in the Eladia system. Looks habitable. Set course, Tanaka ordered. All ships, follow our lead. Let's hope we can catch our breath before the Kravar come looking for their commander. The battered fleet limped towards their uncertain sanctuary. Derek stared out at the star-flecked void, his pupils dilating. They had struck a blow against their enemies, but at a terrible cost, and something told him their trials were not nearly finished. The ragtag fleet of human and alien vessels limped into orbit around Eladia, a verdant world of sprawling forests and azure oceans. As shuttles ferried survivors to the surface, Derek Hill stood on a makeshift command center, watching Admiral Ivanova direct the frantic fortification efforts. "We need those particle cannons online yesterday," Ivanova barked into a comm unit. "The Kravar won't give us time to catch our breath." Derek turned his attention back to the holographic display before him, scrolling through stolen Kravar data on planet ship technology. His eyes burned from lack of sleep, but he forced himself to focus. The secrets to defeating their enemy lay hidden in this sea of alien code and schematics. A commotion from a nearby prefab structure drew his attention. The scarred Lemnorian, Zyla, emerged dragging a bound and battered Supreme Commander Tark. The Kravar's once pristine carapace was dented and scorched. "Talk, you chitinous bastard!" Zyla snarled, slamming Tark against a stack of supply crates. "What are the Empire's true plans for humanity?" Derek winced at the harsh impact. Commander Tanaka strode over, his face a mask of barely suppressed fury. "That's enough, Zyla. We agreed to share intel, not torture prisoners." Zyla's alien features twisted into a sneer. "You humans are too soft. Tark knows more than he's letting on. About your planet ships, about Emperor Varrock's schemes. I intend to extract every scrap of information from his treacherous mind." "And I said that's enough." Tanaka's hand drifted to his sidearm. "Back away from the prisoner. Now." For a tense moment, it seemed Zyla might defy the order. Then with a hiss of frustration, she stepped back. "Fine. But mark my words, there's more at stake here than your petty war with the Kravar. Varrock and his inner circle are pulling strings you can't even see." Tanaka's eyes narrowed. "What are you talking about?" Zyla's voice dropped to a harsh whisper. "Sabotage, infiltration at the highest levels. Why do you think your precious planet ships keep failing? It's not just Kravar aggression. It's a coordinated effort to keep humanity in check." Before Tanaka could respond, alarms blared across the outpost. Derek's head snapped up to see the sky light up with the telltale flashes of ships dropping out of hyperspace. "Kravar assault fleet!" a panicked voice shouted over the comm. "Hundreds of ships! They've found us!" Chaos erupted as colonists and soldiers scrambled for cover. Energy beams lanced down from the heavens, carving furrows in Eladia's pristine landscape. Derek sprinted for the nearest bunker, his mind racing. They weren't ready for this. Not yet. As he dove through the blast doors, a stray thought struck him. The safeguards he'd discovered in the planet ship designs. Could they be the key? If he could find a way to activate them remotely? The bunker shook as explosions rocked the surface. Derek gritted his teeth and pulled out his datapad. It was time to fight back with the Kravar's own technology. Above the embattled planet, ships clashed in a deadly dance of energy weapons and missiles. Human and rebel craft, badly outnumbered, fought with desperate courage against the Kravar onslaught. It seemed certain they would be overwhelmed. Then, like an answer to unspoken prayers, a new wave of ships tore into real space. Leading the armada was a gleaming dreadnought, its hull adorned with the insignia of Earth's expansionist faction. Admiral Drake Ivanova's voice crackled over the comm channels. "This is Admiral Drake Ivanova to all Allied forces. Hold the line, reinforcements have arrived." On the planet's surface, Admiral Elena Ivanova allowed herself a grim smile. Well, she muttered. "Looks like my ex-husband decided to crash the party after all." "All." Her lips quirked in a humorless smile. "Took him long enough." As the battle raged above, Admiral Elena Ivanova's comm unit crackled with an incoming transmission. The voice that emerged was unlike any she'd heard before. A haunting, multi-tonal resonance that seemed to bypass her ears and speak directly to her mind. "Admiral Ivanova, we are the Vitherians. Your species teeters on the edge of annihilation. We bring grave tidings and a plea for alliance." Elena's eyes narrowed. "I'm listening." The Vitherians' message unfolded like a cosmic horror story. An ancient entity called the Shanil Shar, manipulating galactic events from the shadows. The Kravar Empire, merely pawns in a grander scheme of domination. As the implications sank in, Derek Hill burst into the command center, his face ashen. "Admiral, you need to see this." He thrust a datapad into her hands, its screen filled with schematics and century-old communiques. The sabotage of our planet ships? It goes back further than we ever imagined. There's been a conspiracy against Earth for generations, and it's not just the Kravar. Human traitors, working with alien militants. Elena's mind raced, connecting the dots between Derek's discovery and the Vitherian's warning. "My God," she whispered, "we've been played from the start." Across the battlefield, Commander Tanaka led his strike team through the winding corridors of Dornax 5. Plasma bolts sizzled past, scorching the metallic walls. "Push forward," Tanaka shouted, taking cover behind a twisted bulkhead. "The research lab is just ahead." They fought their way into a cavernous chamber filled with holographic displays and alien machinery. As his team secured the perimeter, Tanaka's fingers flew over a Kravar console. Data streamed across the screen, revealing the unthinkable. Schematics for a planet ship retrofitted as a weapon of mass destruction. "Download everything," he ordered grimly. "We need to get this back to base." On Eladia, Breshna and Shara crouched in the shadows of a ruined building, cradling a pulsing alien artifact. Kravar patrols stomped past, mere meters away. "We have to move," Shara clicked softly. "Admiral Drake needs to see this." They sprinted through war-torn streets, dodging energy blasts and debris. The artifact grew warm in Breshna's grip, as if sensing its impending revelation. When they finally reached the human command post, Drake Ivanova's face paled as he decrypted the Vitherian message. The coordinates of a distant homeworld appeared, accompanied by a chilling warning. "The Shanil Shar comes. Our civilization burns. You are next." An emergency council convened. Human officers, rebel leaders, and newly arrived allies debated furiously. In the end, the decision was unanimous. They would take the fight to the Shanil Shar itself. As the expedition prepared to depart, alarm klaxons blared. A Kravar strike force descended on their staging area, catching them off guard. Plasma bolts filled the air. Drake Ivanova shouted orders, rallying their defenses. A high-pitched whine cut through the chaos. A Kravar sniper taking aim at the admiral. Zyla, the battle-hardened Lemnorian, noticed a split second before anyone else. With inhuman speed, she hurled herself in front of Drake. The bolt meant for him tore through her chest. "No!" Drake caught her as she fell. Zyla's alien features twisted in pain, but her eyes held a fierce satisfaction. "Consider us, even human," she gasped. Then she was gone. The attack was repelled, but at a terrible cost. As the dust settled, Derek Hill stood before the trembling form of Supreme Commander Tark. The Kravar's mandibles clacked in terror as he faced the grim-faced firing squad. "You brought this on yourself," Derek said coldly. He raised his hand, then brought it down sharply. The crack of gunfire echoed across the ravaged landscape of Eladia. Hours later, a somber fleet prepared for departure. Wormhole generators spun up, ready to hurl them into the depths of unexplored space. On the bridge of the flagship, Elena and Drake Ivanova shared a quiet moment. "So," Elena said softly, "it seems we have one more battle to fight together." Drake nodded, his eyes fixed on the stars beyond. "For Earth, for all of us." The fleet vanished in a flash of light, leaving Eladia behind. They plunged into the unknown, racing to confront an ancient evil that threatened to consume the galaxy. The fleet materialized in a burst of blinding light, emerging from the wormhole into the Vitherian home system. As sensors recalibrated, a collective gasp rippled through the bridge of the flagship. Where a thriving civilization should have stood, only devastation remained. The Vitherian homeworld hung in space like a cracked egg, its continents reduced to bubbling magma. Twisted hunks of metal drifted in lazy orbits, all that remained of mighty orbital habitats and defense platforms. Admiral Elena Ivanova's knuckles tightened as she gripped the command chair. "Status report," she demanded, her voice barely above a whisper. "No signs of active Vitherian vessels," the tactical officer reported. "Debris field is extensive, radiation levels consistent with usage of multiple Doomsday-class weapons." Drake Ivanova stepped forward, his face ashen. "We're too late." "No." Elena's eyes hardened. Commence search pattern alpha. We find survivors. We find answers. For hours, the fleet combed the system. Scanners probed shattered moons and vaporized orbital stations. Just as hope began to fade, a faint signal pinged on long-range sensors. Source located, the comms officer announced. Asteroid mining facility in the outer system. It's a distress call. Elena nodded grimly. Prepare an away team. Commander Tanaka, you're leading the insertion. Tanaka's strike force boarded their shuttle, weapons primed. As they approached the battered facility, eerily pristine despite the surrounding devastation, Derek Hill's voice crackled over the comm. Be careful in there, he warned. Those emission readings, I've never seen anything like it. The moment Tanaka's team breached the airlock, chaos erupted. Vitharian drones, their programming corrupted, swarmed from darkened corridors. Energy weapons flashed as the humans fought their way deeper into the facility. Contact! Tanaka shouted, diving for cover as a particularly massive drone unleashed a barrage. These things are relentless. Room by room, they pushed forward. Just when it seemed the onslaught would never end, they reached a heavily shielded inner chamber. The door hissed open, revealing a group of haggard Vitharian scientists. One of them, her tendrils quivering with exhaustion, stepped forward. I am Talon, she said, her multi-tonal voice resonating in their minds. You have come too late to save our world, but perhaps not too late to save yours. As Talon recounted the horror of the Shanil Shar's attack, Solaris examined the facility's databanks. His eyes widened. This warp technology, it's an advanced version of what I sabotaged on the Prometheus. Yes, Talon confirmed. We managed to transmit the key to disrupting their propulsion before... Her voice trailed off, grief etched in every alien feature. Tanaka's comm unit crackled. Commander, Elena's voice was urgent. We've got incoming. Massive warp signatures at the system's edge. Understood. Tanaka turned to Talon. We need that disruption tech, and we need it now. What followed was a frenzied race against time. Derek Hill, patched in remotely, oversaw the integration of Vitharian tech into a battered destroyer. Talon and her fellow scientists worked alongside human engineers, their tentacles flying over alien control surfaces. Just as the final systems came online, the sky outside the viewport lit up with sickly green energy. The Shanil Shar Vanguard had arrived. Launch now, Tanaka ordered, as the facility shook under the first barrage. The makeshift destroyer, still sparking from hasty repairs, lurched out of its docking cradle. Talon and Solaris manned the disruption arrays, their minds melding with the alien tech. As the destroyer streaked away on an erratic warp vector, Tanaka watched in horror as the dreadnoughts tore through the Allied fleet. Carriers and cruisers vanished in silent explosions, their crews not even having time to scream. The comm channels filled with desperate voices as the survivors scattered, jumping to random coordinates. Tanaka clenched his fists, torn between relief at their narrow escape and anguish for those left behind. On the bridge of the patchwork destroyer, Solaris turned to Talon. We have the weapon, he said grimly. Now we just need to find what's left of our fleet before the Shanil Shar finish the job. The vessel plunged into the depths of space, carrying with it the fragile hope of victory against an implacable foe. The patchwork destroyer emerged from warp, its hull groaning under the strain of repeated jumps. Solaris slumped over the alien controls, exhaustion etched into every line of his face. Beside him, Talon's tendrils twitched with nervous energy as she scanned the surrounding space. Rally point reached, Solaris announced, his voice hoarse. No sign of pursuit yet. Commander Tanaka strode onto the bridge, his normally pristine uniform now scorched and torn. Status report on the disruption tech? Derek Hill's hologram flickered to life, his avatar surrounded by scrolling data. We're making progress, but the margin for error is razor thin. One miscalculation and we could tear a hole in the fabric of space-time itself. Talon's multitonal voice resonated through their minds. The tachyon pulse synchronization must be precise to the femtosecond. Even then, the risk of catastrophic misfire is significant. As they spoke, other ships began materializing around them. battered cruisers, limping frigates, and makeshift transports cobbled together from the wreckage of destroyed vessels. The comm channels crackled with a cacophony of voices, each bearing news more grim than the last. Admiral Elena Ivanova's face appeared on the main view screen, her eyes hard with purpose. "We don't have the luxury of time for refinement. The Shanilshar are coming, and we need a plan." The next hours passed in a blur of frantic activity. Derek and Talon worked tirelessly, their minds melding with the alien tech as they pushed the limits of what was possible. Meanwhile, Tanaka pored over star charts, searching for the perfect ambush point. As the pieces fell into place, Elena and Drake stood before the assembled fleet commanders, their hands clasped tightly. The weight of their decision hung heavy in the recycled air of the command center. "We split our forces," Elena announced, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hand. "Drake will lead the ambush team, drawing out the bulk of the Shanilshar fleet. My group will make for the core worlds, gathering every ship and resource we can muster." A low murmur rippled through the crowd. The risks were clear to all. Neither group expected to survive this audacious attempt. Drake stepped forward, his gaze sweeping across the room. "We know the odds. We've seen what these monsters are capable of. But here now, we make our stand. For Earth, for our allies, for every sentient being in this galaxy." As the meeting dispersed, Elena and Drake shared a moment alone. No words were needed. Their eyes said everything their voices could not. With a final, fierce embrace, they parted ways, each to their own ship, their own destiny. Natalia found her mother on the observation deck, staring out at the assembled fleet. "Mom," she said softly, her voice catching, I don't want to say goodbye." Elena turned, pulling her daughter close. "Then don't," she whispered. "This isn't goodbye, it's see you later." As the fleet prepared to divide, Derek approached Tanaka. "I'm staying with Drake's group," he said, his face hardened. "Someone needs to keep that disruption tech functional." Tanaka nodded, clasping Derek's shoulder. "Give them hell." The moment of separation arrived. Elena's streamlined task force aligned itself with the distant neutron star, while Drake's ships spread out in a defensive formation. As one, they activated their drives. Space itself seemed to bend as Elena's group accelerated, whipping around the neutron star's gravity well. In a flash of distorted light, they vanished, hurtling towards the core worlds at speeds that defied comprehension. Drake watched them go, allowing himself one moment of quiet anguish before turning to face the oncoming storm. "All ships, battle stations," he ordered. "Let's buy them some time." The Shanilshar arrived like a force of nature, reality-warping dreadnoughts that dwarfed even the largest human vessels. Drake's fleet scattered, drawing them into an intricate dance of feints and counterattacks. Aboard the Vitherian destroyer, Solaris gritted his teeth as he lined up another shot. "Disruption banks charged," he called out, firing in 3, 2, 1. A pulse of concentrated energy lashed out, catching a Shanilshar capital ship at precisely the right moment. For an instant, nothing happened. Then, with a silent flash, the massive vessel simply ceased to exist, consumed by its own ruptured warp drive. "Direct hit!" Talon exclaimed, her tendrils writhing with excitement, recalibrating for the next target. But even as they celebrated this small victory, a new threat emerged. A warp rift tore open nearby, disgorging a monstrosity that defied description. The Omega-class dreadnought loomed over the battlefield, its very presence warping the fabric of space-time. Drake's voice crackled over the comm, tinged with desperation. "All ships, fall back! We can't—" His words were cut off as the behemoth unleashed its power. Entire squadrons vanished in the blink of an eye, reduced to their component atoms by the dreadnought's warp displacement tendrils. "We have to trigger the disruption sequence now," Solaris shouted, his hands flying over the controls. "It's our only chance." Drake's response was grim but resolute. "Understood. All remaining ships, prepare for final approach. This is it, people. Make it count." As the Allies made their suicide run, Talon fed the final frequency data to Drake's vessels. Solaris overloaded the destroyer's drives, pushing them beyond their design limits. In the last moments before detonation, Derek closed his eyes, thinking of Earth, of all they fought to protect. Then, with a blinding flash that seemed to tear reality itself asunder, Drake's flotilla and the Omega Dreadnought vanished into the void. Across the galaxy, aboard Elena's racing task force, Natalia stumbled as if struck. Her eyes went wide, filled with a pain beyond words. "Dad," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Oh, Dad." Elena steadied her daughter, her own grief threatening to overwhelm her. But there was no time for mourning. The scope showed only empty space where the Omega Dreadnought had been. Yet beyond that, the shadows of the surviving Shanil-Shar Armada still loomed. As they hurtled towards the core worlds and their final stand, Talon approached Elena, her alien features etched with a mix of hope and trepidation. "Admiral," she said, her voice resonating in Elena's mind, "there is something you must know, a prophecy from the last days of my people. If the disruption sequence achieved what we thought impossible, there may yet be a chance." Elena's eyes narrowed, a spark of purpose igniting in their depths. "Tell me everything."
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. And for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.